still very healthy and alive. And so let's remember that, and I thank everyone for being here and being part of it. So I'll share with you a few of my thoughts and some of my plans, and then I'm going to pass around this microphone because I want to hear from you. But truly, I do believe that we're in a fight. I believe that we are in a fight for our democracy. I believe we are in a fight for our system of justice. I believe we are in a fight for our rule of law. And there's no question about that. You know, we just all watched this week of hearings, and I just did a bunch of press interviews, and I explained, you know, one of the takeaways that we should, I think, all, you know, leave with at the end of this week is a couple things. One, that there are really, really great people who are working on behalf of the American people. Career people in the Department of State, in the American intelligence community. I'm actually the only person on the debate stage who serves on the Senate Intelligence Committee. And there are great people who have dedicated their lives to the service of our nation, and they were on display this week. The second takeaway is there's clearly a criminal enterprise afoot. Right? And what became exposed, and I've talked about this in some interviews, is that, you know, we need to haul into the Congress to hear from all the president's men. Because it clearly is not only about the president. I have questions about the vice president and the Secretary of State, the Chief of Staff. And then there is Rudy, who thinks that, you know, I think that Rudy needs to remind someone, you know, he's a lawyer, that he has the right to remain silent. So there's a fight in front of us, a fight for all of these things we hold dear, and all of these things that as a nation make us very strong. And so we're prepared to fight for that. That's why we're all here. The question then becomes, okay, how are we going to win? Because it's also the nature of who we are as a people that we know how to fight and we know how to win and we like to win. So to win, I believe, we must be focused on the future of our country, because what's at stake right now is so much bigger than Donald Trump. So we need to be focused on the future, and knowing that bringing back yesterday is not going to solve the problems of tomorrow. To win, we are going to have to fight against the powerful forces that have gained some traction in their attempt to sow hate and division among us. We're going to have to fight against those forces, reminding people that within the beauty of the diversity of who we are as a nation, the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And to win, we're going to need someone on that debate stage who can go toe-to-toe against Donald Trump. And Muscatine, I think you're looking at her. You know, look, I've taken on, I said this in the debate, I've taken on Jeff Sessions. I've taken on Bill Barr. I've taken on Brett Kavanaugh. I can take on Donald Trump. And I'm actually looking forward to it. So we need to win. And we need to do this in the name of people, in the name of the people. And so this is a fight for justice in the name of the people. And as many of you might know, I started my career, I started my life the daughter of parents who met when they were active in the civil rights movement. My sister and I joke we grew up surrounded by a bunch of adults who spent full-time marching and shouting for justice. And so when I actually came home from law school, my mom, who raised me and my sister, she said, okay, Kamala, what are you going to do in your fight for justice? And I said, well, I've decided I'm going to be a prosecutor. Because I want to, one, go inside of a system that is supposed to do the work of justice, but has often done the work of injustice, and be able to be on the inside where I can effectuate reform. And I also want to be in a place where I can be a voice for the most voiceless and vulnerable. And so I started my career, actually the first day walking into a courtroom, speaking 5 words. Kamala Harris, for the people. And that phrase, for the people, really in 2 ways, I believe, represents the spirit of our system of justice. One, in our system of justice, we have rightly said, a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. And in that way we say, and therefore no one should be made to fight alone. For the people, it means all the people, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote, regardless of where they live geographically, regardless of the language your grandmother speaks. It's about all the people. And so I started my career in a courtroom, specializing for years on crimes against women and children, knowing that they deserved a voice that gave them strength and dignity without judgment. For the people, I was elected District Attorney of San Francisco as the first woman, and there created initiatives that were about saying the war on drugs was a failure and led to America's shame of mass incarceration. And so I started programs that became national models around bringing jobs to people who had been arrested for drugs. For the people, I was elected the Attorney General of California, where I led the second largest Department of Justice in the United States, second only to the United States Department of Justice, and there took on the 5 big banks of the United States who had engaged in predatory lending behaviors and activities that caused foreclosures around our country where working families lost their homes. And in that battle brought $20 billion back to the state that I represented. And for the people, I've served in the United States Senate now, taking on, again, Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr and Brett Kavanaugh, and those who need to be held to account and need to tell truth to the American people in the interest of the American people. And it is for the people that I stand here then prepared to defeat Donald Trump. And as Shannon said, so justice is on the ballot in 2020. Justice is on the ballot when there is a father at midnight tonight in places around our country who is sitting at the kitchen table after everyone has gone to sleep. And he's trying to figure out how, even though he's working 2 jobs, he can barely get through the end of the month. And he knows he's paying higher taxes than the 400 richest families in America. Economic justice is on the ballot. I'm running for president to say we're going to put in place the largest middle-class tax cut we've had in generations, which is for families that make less than $100,000 a year. They'll get a tax credit of up to $6,000 a year that they can take home at $500 a month. People say, Kamala, how are you going to pay for that? Well, that's really simple, guys. On day one, we're going to repeal that tax bill benefiting the top 1% and the biggest corporations in America. When in America, on any given day, there is a mom whose child has a fever that is out of control, so she goes to the hospital, and she's looking at the sliding glass doors of the emergency room but doesn't want to walk in because even though she's got insurance, she knows if she walks through those sliding glass doors, she's going to be out of pocket a $1,000 to $4,000 deductible. Healthcare justice is on the ballot. I'm running for president to say we need Medicare for all. Not some, but all. And I'll tell you, my plan is a bit different from my friends on the debate stage. Yes, I'm going to bring down cost. I'm going to get rid of co-pays and deductibles. But I'm not going to raise middle-class taxes, and I'm not going to take away your choice. Because I heard from too many people that said, Kamala, yeah, I want to know that everyone's going to be covered. I like what you're doing to say we're going to extend benefits to include vision and hearing, and we're going to also hearing aids and dental. Yes, yes, right? Yes, the hearing aids, which are so expensive. Thousands of dollars out of pocket. So doing all that, but the point of distinction between my plan and a couple of folks on stage is I'm not trying to get rid of the private insurance companies. They need to be brought to bear on adding co-pays and deductibles, and they need to compete in our system, but I'm not going to take away your choice because healthcare justice is on the ballot. And in America, we're looking at the fact that teachers here in Iowa, around our country, are working 2 and 3 jobs to try and get through the month when 94% of the teachers in our public schools are coming out of their own pocket to help pay for school supplies. When teachers on average make 11% less than similarly educated professionals. Education justice is on the ballot. And it's not right. And it's not right. So I'm running for president to put in place what will be the first in our nation's history federal investment in closing the teacher pay gap, which nationally is $13,500 a year. $13,500 a year. That's a year's worth of mortgage payments or grocery bills or put a significant dent in student loan debt. And I'm here to say to Betsy DeVos, by the way, teachers don't need a gun, they need a raise. And I will tell you, Muscatine, with your help, we're going to win. And one of the most joyful of my first acts as President of the United States will be to say thank you and goodbye to Betsy DeVos. Justice is on the ballot. Justice is on the ballot. When our babies, and you know, I was raised in a community to believe that children of the community are the children of the community. So when our babies, elementary, middle, high school students, have been going to school to endure a drill during which they're taught how to hide in a closet in the event that there's a mass shooter roaming the hallways of their school, justice for our children is on the ballot. I'm running for president to say it is about time that we have courage in leadership to take on the gun lobby. And I'm going to give the United States Congress 100 days to put legislation on my desk for signature. And if they do not, as is a point of distinction between me and some of my friends on the debate stage, I will take executive action and put in place a comprehensive background check requirement and ban the importation of assault weapons into our country. It is time we take action. It's time to take action. When in our country, there have been policies that have resulted in babies being put in cages and parents separated from their children in the name of border security, when in fact what it is a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government. Justice for our immigrants is on the ballot. And let's remember, immigrants have helped make America great. And somebody needs to remind Donald Trump that some of his closest relatives are immigrants too. Shouldn't have let Donald Trump in. So justice is on the ballot in so many ways, and I can go through the list. Environmental justice, the need to reform our criminal justice system, what we must do in terms of focusing on the various social justice issues that are about fundamental issues of equality, reproductive justice. There are legislators and states around our country putting in place laws that would criminalize a physician for assisting a woman with exercising the choice that she rightly has to make over her own body. Reproductive justice is on the ballot. So these are all fundamental issues that I believe are very much front and center and at stake in this election in 2020. And the bottom line then, Muscatine, and this is how I feel very deeply, is that when we overcome these various injustices, I do believe it is at that moment that we will have the potential to unlock America's promise. That we will have the ability to unlock the potential of the American people. And so that's the America I see. When I'm running, and I'm literally running, that's why I wear my Converse so much, I'm running hard. That's what I'm running to. That is what I truly can see and believe. And so that's our goal, and that's where we are. And I'll just make a final point, which is, I've been in the campaign now over 10 months. And, in the course of the campaign and the election, there's been this whole conversation. I call it the elephant in the room, but really it's the donkey in the room. And it's this whole conversation about electability. So let's just have that conversation for a moment, because let's just have, real talk. So the conversation goes something like this. Well, I don't know if America is ready. Yeah. For a woman, of color to be president of the United States. And then some people will say, well, I'm ready, but I don't know if my neighbor's ready. People will say, well, maybe it's not your turn. Maybe it's not your time. Well, I'll tell you guys, this is not a new conversation for me. It's actually a conversation I've heard in every campaign I have, and now here's the operative word, one. And I share this with you, not to say anything about me, but to say everything about who the American people are. We have the ability, and Iowans know this, because particularly you have always been a leader, and having the ability to see what is possible even when we've not seen before. Have the ability to believe and have faith in what can be, unburdened by what has been. In fact, I'm going to just tell you a really quick story about Iowa. So, you have many more stories than I do, but I'm going to share with you one little story that I've got, which is before running for president, this is not the first time I spent time in the state. I spent time in Iowa, in particular, the week between Christmas and New Year's in 2007, and then the first days of January 2008. And I was campaigning for a certain senator from the state of Illinois. And of course, like Dana knows, no job too small or too big. Whatever was needed, delivered pizzas, whatever was needed. And it was the last night before the caucuses, and I went to the headquarters. Anything else to be done? They said, Kamala, there's this senior home, residential home in Des Moines. Nobody's been there yet. It's the Corinthian Gardens. I remember Corinthian Gardens Senior Home, African American residential home. Can you go? And I said, of course. So I went and I started knocking on doors, and invariably some lady would answer the door and say, "Oh, baby, come on in. Are you hungry? You look a little skinny." And then I knocked on this one door, and the lady answered the door. Petite lady, couldn't have been more than 5 feet. She had a chain on the door, but she answered the door in this perfectly coiffed wig. In perfect makeup, this elegant outfit. Now, I don't think she was expecting anybody. And so I was all excited, and I said, "Hi, I'm Kamala Harris, and I'm here, and the caucuses are tomorrow, and will you come out and join?" And she looked at me with a straight face, and she spoke these words. "They're not going to let him win." And then I saw what I was looking at, which is this lady in all of her 85 plus years, and what she has experienced and witnessed in terms of indignity and injustice. And at this stage of her life, she went about to visit another disappointment on herself. And so to myself, I said, okay, I am not leaving here. And I stayed, and I talked to her, and she talked more with me, and opened the door a little bit more. She never took that chain off the door. Never took that chain off. And guess who showed up at the caucuses the next night? And guess who won? So what we are requiring is for people to really believe and to know what's possible. And in candor, we also have to admit, this is not 2007 and 2008. We've got an intervening fact, which is that awful night in November of 2016. It was awful. And it lingers. And there were so many who worked so hard, in such a personal way, out of love of country and belief, that we could elect our first woman president. And for so many other reasons, believed in the importance of that and the importance of her. And then experienced the grief that many experienced that night that still lingers. And that's an intervening fact, and I'm clear about that. I am clear about the fact that there are people who worked really hard, Shannon, you know this, who worked really hard on that campaign, who are saying today, maybe America's not ready yet. I know that. I know that. I am really clear about what we are asking people to believe. I am really clear about this. But here's the thing. There is nothing that our nation has achieved that has been about progress, be it social justice, civil rights, our ongoing fight for equality. There is nothing we have ever achieved that has been about progress that came without a fight. Nothing. We know how to fight. We like a good fight. We were born out of a fight. And it is the nature of who we are that we never sit back and wait for someone to give us permission to tell us what is possible. We make it happen because we know it is possible. And so when others can't see it, and in particular Iowa, you see it and you make it happen. And that's part of why I am running. Because it is that exact spirit that also talks about then. And the America we can see, the America we can see and believe in, where everyone has health care. The America we believe in, where we treat our children with the respect and the nurturing they deserve so they can go to school every day and feel safe. The America we believe in, where we respect immigrants, understanding that we are a nation of immigrants. Because, by the way, unless you're Native American or your ancestors were kidnapped and brought over on a slave ship, your people are immigrants. The America we believe in. This is what is our fight right now. It's an America we believe in, where we know that nobody should have to work more than one job to have a roof over their head and food on the table. And ultimately, for me, it is the America I believe in, which also includes that when we approach a perfect stranger, in their face, we see a neighbor. That's the America we're fighting for. And I believe we will win. Thank you, guys.
Hey, let's give her one more round of applause. So we'll open up for questions now. Sir, we'll get you a microphone.
Senator Harris, my name is Ken Jones. I'm from Houston, Texas.
Oh, hi, Ken.
Hi. I drove up here to work for you. I'm working out of the Davenport office, knocking on doors.
Great.
And when I'm doing my little estimate of why I'm for you, I tell them really one word, and it's insulin. I'm an insulin-dependent diabetic. I'm a retired teacher on a pension, and I am proud of you for the work that you've done. And I really want you to be elected so you can get in there and fight for us. The other thing, Senator, I'm tired of being the only person on Facebook that doesn't have a selfie with you.
Oh, come here, Ken.
Well, okay.
Ken's definition.
No. I can't take it.
A picture is worth 1,000 words.
such an honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. But so, and thank you for not only traveling and working on the campaign, and because that's the strength of our campaign is that kind of support and that kind of work, but also insulin.
Yeah.
So everybody might know this. 1 in 4 diabetes patients in America cannot afford their insulin. A vial of insulin in America can cost over $300. Okay, I'm glad you asked me how much does it cost in Canada. I'm glad you asked. It costs about $30. So one should sit back and ask, well, how is it that American drug companies are charging Americans more for the same drugs than they charge for patients in Canada and other places around the globe? How could that be? Well, I will tell you. It is because we have a bunch of people in Washington, D.C. who are in the pocket of these drug companies and stand by and watch our own people be charged more for the same drugs by American companies. So when I say healthcare justice is on the ballot, it is about my Medicare for All plan. It is also about what I also intend to do, specifically about the pharmaceutical companies and drug prices. Because I'm going to tell you another point of distinction between me and a few people on that stage. Mine is a career of actually working on things and getting them done. There are very few topics of discussion on which I have not actually worked. And I don't mean given a lovely speech or submitted a bill that may or may not have gone past. Actually work on it. On this, I have taken on the drug companies when I was Attorney General of California, and I won. And I know how powerful they are. And I know what they're doing, and I know their business model. So my plan, as a candidate for president on the issue of drug prices, is as follows. We are going to set drug prices based on fair market. So essentially what we're going to do, and visit the website if you will, and if not, we'll get you some documents. But essentially what we're going to do is set drug prices so that American consumers are charged a price for drugs that is the average price that's being charged around the globe. And there's a huge difference. Insulin being an example. The other thing is this. If people don't want to cooperate with that, I'm also going to do the next thing, which is this. A lot of drugs, prescription medication, was born out of federal funding for the research and development of that drug. Your taxpayer dollars. So for any drug where they fail to play by our rules, and if that drug came about because of federal funding for what's called R&D, research and development, I will snatch their patent so that we will take over. And yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. It's the question is, do you have the will to do it? I have the will to do it. But so insulin, thank you for talking about that as an issue, and it just represents for me a whole bigger issue of what is happening in terms of how people, seniors here in Iowa taking buses to Canada to get their prescription medication. Seniors around the country who are splitting pills. So the doctor has prescribed that you take the whole pill. And people are taking half the pill, quarter of the pill to extend the prescription, which is resulting in obvious outcomes because it's not what you're supposed to take to be healthy. So we're seeing that people are going into health crises. Because of course, most things around healthcare, you don't just it's not gradual, you plateau to a different state. People are dying because they're splitting their pills. Seniors are making decisions about filling their refrigerator or filling their prescription. This is inhumane. It's immoral. So, thank you, Ken. Thank you.
Okay. We have the gentleman in the back with his hand up. Middle, right there. Yep.
How are you doing, Ms. Harris? I'm from Washington, D.C. Me and my friend Todd.
Is anybody here from Muscatine?
How's it going, Ms. Harris? I'm Evan Stein from D.C. as well.
Hi.
So we traveled all the way from D.C. We do not have a vote in Congress, and we never have.
Yeah, I know.
And so what we're coming to you is, like we've done with so many other presidential candidates, we've traveled the country pretty much. We've seen you in Cedar Rapids. We've seen you in Des Moines not too long ago. And what we wanted to know, will you support D.C. statehood, 51
told you guys
states?
yes.
With 51 votes in the Senate, though, man.
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm
With-
there. I'm
with-
there. And here's the thing. I went to Howard University. I lived.
Me too.
Hey, Bison. And let me just tell you, I'm really clear about this. It is unfair on its face. Taxation without representation. See, I know the slogan. I know what I'm talking about. I'm there.
Thank
I
you
agree
so much
with
for your support.
Of course.
Can we get a picture before you leave here today? We love you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have the lady in the red.
Hi, Senator Harris. My name is Sarah. I'm a teacher,
Thank you.
also working another job,
Yeah.
which a lot of my coworkers and I do. I'm just tired. I'm tired of waking up a few times in the middle of the night, scared to go to school. I'm tired of my students coming to school being afraid of in their own neighborhoods because they hear gunshots at night and they feel like they can't go out and play. I know you're not afraid of Trump, but I want to know what you're going to say to Mitch McConnell so that things actually start to change and there's no more Sandy Hook and Columbines.
So what everyone heard is what's happening around our nation. And thank you for having the courage to stand up and say that. Our kids are traumatized. Just doing an assessment of who's in the room, the majority of us in this room are over the age of 20. But if you talk to anybody who is under the age of 20, regardless of where they live, high school, middle, or elementary school, they will tell you they have these active shooter drills on a consistent basis. Where literally, and I just want to break it down for everybody, where literally they are taught about what they should do in terms of hiding in a closet, crouching in a corner. I was talking with one student, her name is Avery, she's a high school student. I said, tell me what it's like, Avery. She said, well, basically this is what she said. So if we do it in every class, but I kind of hope that when the shooter comes, I'm not in this one classroom because it's near the stairwell. And so I often think when I'm in that class, I hope it doesn't happen here. I would prefer to be in this other classroom, my humanities class or whatever, she said, because there's a big closet in that classroom. Then she went on to say, I particularly like what this other teacher of mine does because she's got a bungee cord. So she'll kind of like put the file cabinet with the bungee cord against the door so nobody can break in. When I talk about this publicly, I cannot tell you the number. Usually it's some child between the age of about 8 and 10 who comes up to me after, and I'll pull my jacket, and as though it's a secret between us, will say, I had to have one of those drills too. I've met elementary school teachers, including teachers at every level, who during teacher orientation before classes started, a big part of their orientation was they're being taught and trained on how to tackle a gunman. Elementary school teachers I've met who told me, Kamala, part of what we're being trained is, this one teacher said that I should keep some red lollipops on me. I said, why? She said, well, because, for the youngest kids, we need to keep them quiet. This is what is happening in America. And let me tell you something. And this is what I say to Mitch McConnell, I say to all those people in Congress who are frankly feckless. Just literally no courage. Is that these babies, and elementary, middle, high school students could care less who their parents voted for in the last election. Could care less. And those bullets certainly care less. So and again, look, some of my friends who are opponents in the race have said, oh, well, Kamala's just going to take executive action, but, what happens when then there's a Republican who comes in after her? You know what? I'll deal with that in 8 years. We need action. We need action. And I just want to say to you, thank you for continuing in this profession. Part of my whole plan on education, and it's big. My first grade teacher attended my law school graduation. I love teachers. The blessing of an incredible mother and family and incredible teachers put me on this stage as a candidate for president. And so my focus is on a number of issues, including this, but also I will make sure that we have a nurse and a social worker in every school. And also doing all of the work that we need to do to honor our teachers and the significance of our public education system. So thank you for sticking with it, in spite of all of the obstacles that are being thrown your way. It's some of the most noble work any one human being could do. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have one last question.
Thank you. Oh, well, first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
My question is about housing. Would you share with us
Yes.
your platform and policies on
Yes.
housing? And before you do, hello, Al Chapter 7. I've been posting. All of them are waiting for their pictures.
Okay.
I'm taking tonight.
Thank you.
But I'd like to hear about housing, and I'm sure others would too. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I never thought my affordable city would now become unaffordable. It's being gentrified.
Yeah.
And
That's right.
it is costing a lot of money to
Yeah.
live in Kansas City.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to hear your plan on that.
Yeah, no, you're right. At Kansas City, there are regions of Iowa, same issue. I mean, all over New Hampshire. It is something where the issue of affordable housing, which is the topic, is a very big one, and probably one of the. I put it on my list. I have a short list, but actually it's a long list of things that we are not talking enough about. They're really big issues for families and for communities. One of them is affordable housing, and just while I'm on the subject of my list, the other one is mental health. It's driving me bananas. Sorry to say it that way, but all the discussions that we've been having about health care, which we rightly must have. It's the number one issue on most people's minds. It keeps them up at night. And you know how we talk about health care, guys? As though the body starts at the neck down. Instead of understanding that the health care that we need from the neck up is equally important. It's one of the biggest public policy failures of America. People are quietly, silently suffering from depression, from substance abuse, from suicidal thoughts, and we're putting no resources into it. It is absolutely, it is affecting everyone from farmers to veterans, to children. You talk about in communities where there's violence, or a home where there's violence. So let's be very clear, growing up in poverty is trauma-inducing. And what we are not doing to address mental health as an extension of our healthcare system, and that's a big part of my plan. Housing, affordable housing. So I actually just rolled out part of our policy today, which is about $100 billion putting into affordable housing, but also I have a plan that's about homelessness that is connected, obviously. But the affordable housing is as follows. In 99% of the counties in America, if you're a minimum wage worker working full-time, you cannot afford market rate for a one-bedroom apartment. So one of the issues about affordable housing is the fact that, and it's an overall issue, that wages have not kept up with the cost of living. So this becomes highlighted on a variety of issues that are fundamental to the dignity, much less the security of anyone, like a roof over your head. It comes up when we talk about issues like affordable child care. Again, wages have not kept up with the cost of living. Child care is in many places more expensive than college tuition. So affordable housing, so it's $100 billion to put into basically what we need to do around, also, there's also we need to build affordable housing. So it's about families being able to have the wages and wages to be able to afford what's there, but also to have more supply. And my plan includes greater partnerships with our building trades unions, so the plumbers and the pipe fitters and the carpenters, around building within the communities that need the affordable housing, the skills so that the folks in that community can actually acquire the skills to take the jobs that are so important to building the housing in their own communities. Because, you know, the Trump administration talks about this stuff, but as with every policy they have, it's self-serving. And so a lot of part of how they talk about affordable housing are policies that, if you look at the details of it, are about putting money in the back pocket of developers as opposed to putting money in the communities. So overall, that's how I look at the issue, and that's how I think about it. And thank you for raising it.
All right. Thank you all. If we could, let's send Kamala Harris out with a truly Muscatine, heartfelt thank you for coming and speaking with us.
And please join us in Kamala's Corner. What you have? Thank you all.